Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 294. Today we're going to talk about Villainous Vikings. This is a new release from Victory Point Games. It plays 2 to 4 players and it says about an hour, which is about right. This is an interesting game. It has basically some kind of historical and a little bit of mythological, Viking history kind of interwoven together. Players will be sailing ships around and they're either going to be pillaging and destroying and razing locations, or they may be dealing with them peacefully, trading with them, buying mercenaries, repairing their ships, stuff like that. But before I get too much into the review, I will say this is kind of like an Ameritrash filler, which is interesting because that's not something you have. Fillers are usually very, numbery and economic-y and kind of Euro-y. Not often that you find an Ameritrash style filler. So before I get too much into the review let's go into how it works and I'll come back and say what I think. Okay, here you can see the game set up for 4 players, and I'll just make a quick review comment. I think this game should only be played with 4 players. I'll talk about that more in the review, actually. Quick component note, though. These ships are actually really cool. One of the neat things about Victory Point Games and their style of production, they seem to be able to create really uniquely shaped counters. So each player is going to have a little Viking ship here, relatively detailed, for a punch-out counter. So everybody's going to start with a ship up there in the Northlands, and each player gets a token here matching the color of their ship. The first player is going to start at 0, second player 2, 4, and then 6 for the fourth player. So you get a little bit more gold because the first player is going to get a jump on you in terms of which locations they're going to go out and either trade or pillage with. Each player gets a captain card. You can deal these randomly out or choose them. And then everybody gets an identical boat here. And the interesting thing about this boat is they match the different dice that you can roll. So as long as you have this particular card available, for example, you can roll the white die and then the gray and then the red. And then as your boat takes damage and you lose crew, you can see the little crew indicator there. This is going to flip over and then you're going to lose access to that red die. Now later on in your turn, or on a later turn, you can repair each of these sections for 2 gold and basically kind of like restock your ship with crew. Now the captains are interesting. They each have a different static ability, and then you can see that all of the captains are going to have these little hammer abilities, and you may not be able to see it on camera here, but this is the white hammer. So whenever you roll the hammer on the white die, you're going to get this ability, which in this case is 2 shields. The gray hammer will give you 3 swords. The swords are basically your attacking power. So when you roll swords, you add that to your attacking power. And then when you roll the red hammer, a lot of times you'll have a little special ability that's going to happen here. So this guy, for example, says, force your opponent to re-roll 1 combat die that did not result in a hammer. So everybody got a different captain. There's quite a few of these here. Let's take a look. So you've got a bunch of different characters sort of out of Viking lore, Ragnar, Glamir, all kinds of different guys. So he's an undead captain. So there's a little bit of a supernatural element to this here. So what players are trying to do is sail around here, either trade and interact with these different regions peacefully, or just go in and pillage and plunder and take them for all of their resources. Now normally you're sailing around to these different regions, but you can, if you want to stay in the Northlands or sail back to the Northlands, in that case you can repair a section for free, and then each subsequent section you want to repair will cost you 5 gold a piece. Now you can repair your ship elsewhere, but that's sort of like your freebie turn to kind of recover and lick your wounds a little bit. As I said, players mostly are going to be sailing to these different regions. Basically, you're choosing a card here and interacting with it in one of 2 ways, either aggressively or kind of as a peaceful trading type of attitude. Now you will have occasionally some of these event cards come up in the deck. And I should say the deck here, I've got all the cards in the deck, but not all the cards are going to be used. You've got age 1, you can see that there. And then you've got all the way down to age 3 there. Now somewhere in the bottom 5 cards of age 3 is going to be the Ragnarok card. When that comes up, the game's going to end immediately. You're going to have kind of like a giant sort of like little tournament of a battle. And then whoever wins that is going to get 6 extra points to add to their additional things. So you're kind of teching up through the game as you go through these different ages to get better and better and better, and then hopefully kind of be the most well off to get that final battle, get that extra 6 points, which can make the game. Now first let's talk about how you would interact with a location peaceably. So you can see the location you're supposed to go to indicated by the matching icon in the region and the color, and it gives you a nice little indication there on the map card. So you're going to go there. Now, if somebody else is in that region, they have the opportunity to do battle with you directly. If they don't, if they choose not to, then they actually have to go back up here to the Northlands to start their turn off. So I'll talk about how you battle ships later, but just know that you can do that. Now here, a couple of things I can do. I could repair my ship, and that's going to cost me, again, 2 gold per section. I can actually bribe the guards so that anytime anybody comes here later, they're going to roll 1 less dice in battle. So if we take a look here, you can see this one's a relatively tough, well, for the early game, they're going to roll 1 of each die. Now if I pay them 2 gold, I'll basically tap that card, and then we'll just, it'll stay up there in the row, of course. But you tap that, and they're going to roll -1 die, and they're always going to roll the least hard die, so they're going to only roll a white and a gray. So you've maybe set that up for somebody else, so you got to be a little bit careful about that. Now, one thing to notice, some of these cards have a little name here, and you've got this hero deck that when this card comes out in the row, you're going to go dig through here and then find the matching hero and put that with them. Now, if this were a mercenary hero that was associated with it, which is not, you can see the cost here to actually hire that mercenary. So if you go there and you do a trade action, a peaceful action, you can repair your boat, bribe the location to reduce the guards, and then if you have got money for it, you can hire the mercenary. You're going to add this to your crew, and this is going to give you a little static ability, and he's also give you a sacrifice ability. Now the last thing that you can do, which you are not able to do in this case because there's no dollar amount here, but if we take a look at the Isle of Sheppey there, or Sheppey, you can see this costs 4 gold. So if I wanted to, I could just go ahead and buy the loyalty of this location, and then the location, of course, is going to go in front of me in that case. But the folks here in Seville are not so easily, bought. So there's no way to buy them loyally. But you can still go there and do trade actions. You just can't actually buy the location. Now, if I was going to come here and try to conquest the location, what you basically do is you roll all the dice indicated there. In this case, it would be all 3. I would roll all the dice indicated by my still available dice on these cards here for the ship. And remember, this one has a hero associated with it. So we're going to take a look at that hero. And this is just a regular hero. They call it a convert hero in the rules, but you can tell that by the little swords up there. Now it's going to add its attack power, whatever its static ability is, to the location to help it. But if we win, we get to take this guy, and then now he gets our static ability will be added, and then the sacrifice ability as well will be added. So if you beat the location, you get this much gold down here, and the location will be worth this many points here at the end of the game, as well as you get the hero if it was associated with it. Now, if you get one of these types of heroes here, and these are the champions, the boss heroes, these you don't ever acquire for your crew, but you can, if you beat the location, you get this victory points here at the end of the game. And then these abilities here will only contribute to the location that you're fighting him. So he's not going to actually help you in the game later, but he is going to give you some points because they're usually more difficult. Now fighting is very interesting, so let's go ahead and take a look. So I'm going to roll all 3 of my dice. So there we can see, okay, I've got 2 hammers. In this case, that's going to add 3 swords because I rolled the gray hammer here. And then the red hammer is going to force my opponent to re-roll 1 of the dice that didn't have a hammer. And then I'm going to add here a hammer and a shield. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 hammers, 1 shield, and then I got a little special ability. So he's going to roll. Let's just roll this. And so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 hammers there, and then a shield there, because remember, his static ability is adding. So let's say here we had, we didn't roll that hammer there. Let's say we just roll, or excuse me, we didn't roll the sword. So we only rolled the 1 shield. So we would win this battle in this case. If you ever have more hammers, or excuse me, more swords than the other side, then you're going to win the battle. However, you're still going to take losses here. So he's got 3 swords. I've only got 1 shield. So I'm going to take 2 losses, even though I'm going to actually win the battle. Now, if you ever just take like 1 loss in this case, then it's fine. You kind of eat up the losses and they go away after the turn. But let's say I had taken 3 losses. We're going to count starting from right to left. 1, 2, 3. So any card that you fully count through, you're going to have to flip over. So now in the next turn, if I take 2 losses, I go 1, 2, I'm fine. But if I ever take 3 or more, then I'm going to have to flip this over. So you've got to equal kind of the threshold of the card to be able to flip it over. So in this case, I would have taken 2 losses again because 1, 2, 3, and I have 1 shield. So 3 minus 1 is 2. That's how many losses I take. But I win the battle because I have more swords. 1, 2, 3, 4 to 3. So I would have won the battle. I'll take this, and I'll take the hero and the card associated with it. Now what you can do with these heroes here is you can stick them in your ship, and so you have a spot for 3 heroes, and so now this guy's static ability is going to add to my battles, as well as I have a sacrifice ability. Now after calculating, you know, all of the swords from dice and special abilities, you can sacrifice 1 location and 1 hero for their sacrifice abilities, and you can see the locations here give you, you know, a little thing. This is their sacrifice ability there. You can see these other locations, of course, give different ones. This one will give you a gray hammer, and then you get 2 swords and a shield there. So you're giving up victory points in that case to be able to kind of, you know, pull yourself through in a pinch. But that's the choice you have. Now, if you're fighting another ship, it's basically the same idea. You're going to roll dice, you're going to add your static abilities, and then possibly apply the sacrifice abilities. The trick with that is if there's a tie, then you have the choice to retreat. If neither player retreats to the Northlands, then you know you have another battle there. And the other difference with the captain battle, captain versus captain battle, is you can actually replenish, if you're the victor, one of your crew cards here. So that can be an interesting idea. And then similar, at the end of the game here, when Ragnarok happens, then we're going to have a big battle. So we're going to have, like in a 2-player game, we'll just have 1 battle. But in, let's say, a 4-player game, everybody has 1 big battle. Whoever's the weakest drops out. And then you have another battle. And then the weakest of that drops out. And then you have a final battle between the 2 strongest. The only difference being you don't take any losses. So if you make it through the first round, the second round, you're not going to take losses and be weakened. Otherwise, whoever won the first battle, by the best, would just win the game probably, or win the 6 points, because everybody else will be taking losses. Now there are a couple of bonus items here. So you can see here, this one says first to have basically 3 cards in the same region. So if you get 3 yellow cards, then you get this here, the 6 points at the end of the game. Now if somebody passes you, then they'll take this from you. It's kind of like longest road or whatnot in Catan. The other bonus here is first have unique regions, so 4 unique regions, and then you get 6 points. But again, you can pass somebody and get that. So at the end of the game, you add up the points from any bonuses, any cards that you have. Again, some of these event cards you can do, you'll get them, and then you can get the points for those. Any of the champion heroes here, these will give you points. And then every 3 gold that you have in the game will give you points as well. So, but you're going to be spending your gold, repairing your ship, maybe outright bribing folks, buying mercenaries, and you do get an additional 6 points for having the most gold as well. And I think I said, but you get 6 points here for winning Ragnarok. So you don't have to win Ragnarok to win the game, but if the game's close, it definitely helps. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the overview, and at the beginning of the walkthrough I did mention that I think you should really only play this with 4 players. You could probably play it with 3, it's fine. With this style of game, this 3-player is a huge issue, and I don't really know that many games can solve it. You kind of have to, I think, it's kind of beyond me really, but you kind of have to go down a sort of strange Euro-y kind of smorgasbord idea to get 3-player games to really work. If there's any kind of attacking or take that, 3-player games, it's just tough, because 2 guys are going to fight and 1 guy's going to win, or 1 guy's going to beat you down, and then then the other 2 will kind of run away with it, kind of depending on how that game works out. So it's tough to do. The problem with 2-player in this is you can have a snowball effect. If I grab a location or get some points or get a cool hero to add to my boat, and I snowball and you falter early, then I'm just kind of off to the races. Where when you add in, especially with the 4 players, you have enough kind of people mixing it up and changing things around, and players doing battle with each other, that you can catch up a little bit if you get a little bit behind. But that being said, I just wouldn't play it with 2-player. I would still probably play it with 3, but I was really, to me, as a 4-player game. It's a very cool, interesting little game. Like I said, it's a Ameritrash filler, so you sail a spot, you get a cool little ability, from one of the heroes. You get the locations, which is interesting because you can sacrifice those, later on, he's like, well, this only gives me 1 or 2 points, but boy, I need to sacrifice it for the hammer ability or for some swords to win the battle to get this really cool thing. It's going to give me this really cool hero a little bit later on in the game. And the events are interesting. There's not a lot of events. You can see a game where you really don't, I haven't seen a game where you don't see any events, but it's totally possible. I usually see 1 at least. But so that's interesting. I wish there was kind of more events, but I don't know. That's kind of really neither here nor there. So it's a quick game. You just, you go to a spot, you deal with it. Next player moves on, and you just kind of snowball from there and tech up. I really do like the fact that it is an Ameritrash filler, because it's just a very fun, quick game. It's very simple turns, and it's just really interesting interactions. You have little PvP battles, me against another guy, and then you can kind of go off on your own and sort of stay away from people and just kind of tech up that way, and build up your sort of money engine and all that kind of good stuff. So it's a cool little interesting game, and so it has a strange little niche that it fits into, but I definitely would recommend the game if you're playing it with 4 players. If you're playing with 2, it just doesn't really work for a 2-player game. I can't stress that enough. It works, but it functions, but it's just that runaway leader is so much of a problem, or at least a potential problem. So I would recommend it though. I would take a look at it. This is, it's going to fit a certain kind of niche that doesn't really ever get filled with this kind of, I wouldn't say it's an epic sweep or epic scope, but it kind of has that little bit of that feel to it, where if you sit down and you play a quick game in an hour, it's, you don't really get a lot of sort of thematic fun out of that usually. Like there's Nexus Ops and then there's nothing else, that really, there's some other ones, but it's really few and far between. So I would take a look at this one if you were looking for, I haven't played it at lunch, but if you wanted to look for this style of game, at lunch, you could totally whip this out and play it. So anyway, Villainous Vikings, take a look at it.